What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the hashtag NEA Monopoly or and Madden Monopoly hashtag NFL Drop EA live stream, the Madden Community Hangout. I have a few special guests here. The man who kicked off the actual movement with the hashtag NFL Drop EA and hashtag and Madden Monopoly. We got Soft Drink TV in the house.
What's up, everybody?
And also, as usual, the guy who has been keeping much of the Madden fan base up to date on all of the really egregious actions of EA's Madden football and all of the glitches and all of the bad logic that we've seen in the system for so long. We got Ryan Moody 21 here.
Three's company. You stumbled fresh out of the gate. Love to see it. I thought Clint was the one that kicked off the whole hashtag. Why are we taking?
Oh man! Oh, he sent it into overdrive. That's for dang sure.
It's EA's game that provided the fuel. We just strapped it to a rocket and let it take off.
Exactly. So this is really, just a stream for, a lot of the people who are in the Madden community, whether it be the gamers themselves, whether it be the content creators. We're all just coming together here to talk about Madden, talk about the issues that we have with EA and how they're handling a lot of what is going on right now. It's hit the proverbial shit has hit the fan, and the masses are now aware of a lot of just the ill-gotten will that EA has had with the gamers over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, however many years you want to talk about it. Madden has just underperformed to be the only exclusively licensed simulation football game on the market from a company that has such a large amount of resources that can make anything happen that they want with this property in a way that benefits the gamers, in a way that benefits the sport itself, that improves and enlightens the brand of the NFL. They have all of those tools to build a real true winner of a game. And for the last generation of console football, we have seen a company that has been lazy. We've seen a company that has sat in apathy, that has not lived up to the promises that they've made to the community for years. And it doesn't matter if you're somebody who's online. It doesn't matter if you're somebody who just plays with their friends at home. Everybody has similar complaints about why this game and why this brand, as of late, has not held up to its end of the bargain. And I really wanted to kick this off and just let our guest here, Soft Drink TV, talk about, when was the moment that you really felt like something like this hashtag and Madden Monopoly and NFL Drop EA was something that needed to be brought to the public in a real strong way. I mean, you've been doing, you've had a number of different perspective pieces on your channel regarding, all different kinds of sports gaming, but Madden has been one that really, above all, has kind of stuck in the mind of your viewers, of your audience, because of the inability of this game to really take any true steps of innovation forward. Like, what was it that really kind of sent you on this mission to get this movement started?
Yeah, so the hashtag fix franchise mode I thought was a really good start. But what happened was that hashtag went trending, and the Sean Grady, I think that's how you say his name, he came out with the what they were going to do to make the game better.
Mm-hmm.
So the game comes out, and none of that is in the game, none of it at all. And after I made my review, of course, I was very negative review because I just thought it was a very bad game. And then as a few days went on, I saw the Metacritic and just how the fans were just blasting the game because they were so fed up. And I thought, the fixed franchise mode obviously wasn't enough, because look at the product we just got on launch day. So I figured I might as well take a shot trying to start another hashtag, just see where it goes, see if we can get the NFL's attention. So I thought, instead of trying to get EA's attention, which is what fixed franchise mode was, I thought we should try to get the NFL's attention. So that's why I came up with hashtag NFL drop EA, because the idea behind that is we want the NFL to drop their exclusive rights with EA, because clearly with no competition, EA's not going to make a good product. That's just, they've proven that for the past decade. You could say they've proven that since they signed the exclusive rights agreement, because Madden 06 on the 360 was a terrible game. So I thought if that could get trending, and I had no idea if it would or not, I didn't know if I had the reach to do that. Maybe we'd get the NFL's attention, force them to make a statement, something. So I made a video. I just whipped it up early in the morning that day. I was just so mad, and I posted it, and it worked.
Wow. And again, like before even the fixed Madden franchise, I've checked out a number of your videos. I was a huge 2K fan, and you did a number of different comparisons as to what Madden has been lacking, and you compared it to games like 2K football and 2K5 in particular, and Ryan as well. He's done a ton of comparisons to met with Madden and All Pro Football 2K8. So there's been a conscious effort to show why there's really just a lack of innovation in the game when you compare it to games that have been out for 15 plus years. And I know for me personally, one of the things that was always such a huge, I guess, kind of a fan base battle when I was younger, when there were more than one NFL games that were on the market, was that guys would be anticipating the release of Madden and NFL 2K and NFL Game Day and NFL Fever. All these games had their own sectors of fans that really were devoted to the games. And part of what was so great about playing those games is that you were always waiting each year to see what each company came up with to one up the other one. And 2K started with NFL 2K in 1999, and that kind of set kind of a new bar when it came to football graphics, to the graphics in a football video game. And the gameplay was tight. Obviously the franchise wasn't as deep as what you'd find in like a Madden, but it was a great start and a breath of fresh air. And a lot of people really gravitated towards NFL 2K. And by the time 2K5 came out, when they had a full-fledged, fully polished product where they had ESPN presentation, they had halftime shows, they had the VIP system, which I believe revolutionized the entire football video game landscape at the time, and online play, which was still in its infancy somewhat, but 2K was in full swing with it. This was a game that used online play that really put it out for people to be able to compete across the country on video game systems. That was something that people really looked forward to each and every year, just competing on that level. It was the same as if you're on the field. I played ball 7 years in the NFL, and competition is what drives the sport of football, especially on a professional level. You compete each and every day in and day out, against people trying to take your job. You compete to impress the people who are evaluating your skills. Then you go out there on Sundays and you compete against your opponent to get a win. And it's everything that's encompassed in the principles of the sport itself. But when you look off, when you look off the field in the real world with video games, with football video games, you could see the products that were being produced when there was truly competition out on the market. And then you could see what was happening, obviously, once that exclusivity deal was signed by EA and the NFL. Within 3 years, you started to see what the result of that deal would become when EA had no one to truly compete with them, when they had no competition in the market. They rested on their laurels, like almost everybody does when they're not being pushed by a competitor. And whether it's in the car industry, whether it's in the movie industry, whether it's in, music, people compete against one another and try to put out the best product each and every year, because that means, that's going to be the best situation for the consumers. Everybody who buys the games wins because you're getting this development team's best product. And we just haven't seen that with EA. We haven't seen them. I mean, there's so many different just glitches, so many different lapses in gameplay, so many mistakes in logic. Me and Ryan Moody actually set a video up together where I broke down one play. I didn't even go into, we never even dug into playbooks. We just went through one play, a counter play. We ran counter over and over and over against one defense. And the play was blocked miserably each and every time, except for once where it almost was blocked correctly. It still had a big, logic glitch up before the play ended. But when you can't get the basics, the fundamentals, the foundation of the game right, and you don't, but you see year in and year out that it's becoming a larger and larger issue. When do you say enough is enough? And I just wanted to just really bring that and open up a discussion with all three of us to talk about where is the level of oversight, where is where's the quality assurance in playing a game. And at this point with Madden 21, it's so egregious that the field turns white. The field has no markings on it. There's no offense on the field. There all these things that are game breaking, truly game breaking, are almost things that we see on a regular basis with Madden at this point. And maybe you guys can talk a little bit about your experiences with it in your own individual, in your own respective rights. But let's open it up and talk about that a little bit. And before we do that, we got a super chat coming in here from JT Sports. JT Sports has a super chat, $4.99, says, can't even play franchise. The CPU only throws 5-yard checkdowns. I mean, I know one thing about Madden. You play that thing, you play the franchise mode, you play against a good CPU, and the CPU can be at times near impossible to defeat because of just the weird logic it uses. They don't pass the ball in spots that you would think they would try to pass it. The game it plays differently when it's the computer in control, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's funny. I was doing my fantasy draft today, and I thought about Phillip Rivers and Jonathan Taylor doing checkdowns, and I was like, if this was Madden, that would never work. But to go back to your point, I think it's interesting. With all of us here, it's not really so much competition. I mean, I don't look at Soft Drink, and I hope he doesn't look as me as competition to each other. When I go on your channel, when thankfully you come on my channel, we're not competing against each other. We're trying to make each other better. And I think that's a lot of what EA doesn't have. A lot of people look at it as, this was Sony, this was Microsoft versus EA. But to be fair, a lot of it was just the fact that there was someone else there to push you. I remember when Axis first released, Rex Dixon actually promoted them on his personal Twitter and said, thankfully, somebody understands the difficulties in a football game. And I think we've lost a lot of that. It's funny. I got an email from Danny today with Axis, and he rewrote the run blocking logic for the offensive line. And you think to yourself, okay, you see that. And then you think back, how many years have we asked EA to do this? And you go back and, like you said, you talk about the challenges from this year. And I feel like we've seen more from EA this year than maybe we're used to seeing, right? Perhaps they have somebody that would, check the spellings of presentations. Perhaps they would have somebody that would kind of, amp them up before a presentation. But, I had to watch the Good Morning Madden the other day. And I mean, it's just they come out dull, they come out lifeless, they come out apologetic. And it's, if you're selling a product, you believe in your product, you love your product, I feel a lot of times myself and Soft Drink put, and you too, the way you did your breakdown on my channel the other day, there's more passion in our voices than the person selling us the product. That it's not supposed to be that way. I'm supposed to be the least descript person here. You selling it to me should be the one that's enthusiastic, that should be pushing forward. And I see you on a live stream, and you just don't know how to handle yourself. You don't know how to present yourself. And then I'm left to ask, no wonder. Well, why am I expecting so much? If you don't care to sell me a $6 game, why do I care to watch your presentation? I don't know if they spread themselves thin, or whatever the case may be. But I said it in a prior video. I don't want to hear about what they went through this year and how difficult things were. Things were difficult for all of us, and we still have to do our jobs, and we still have to do what we're supposed to do. So if you think that I'm going to be sympathetic to you selling me the same product for the 8th year in a row, then you've got the wrong person, and I feel like a lot of people in the community, it's funny, earlier you said, shit finally hit the fan. I think this year, the fans finally hit the shit, and we're like, listen, this is enough. We're pushing back. And I think this has been the year we've pushed back.
I feel like you can't really use COVID as an excuse for the game if they're going to charge $60 for it. Like,
yeah.
They're charging the same they're always charging, so we should expect a $60
But you got to remember,
product.
you got to remember, and I know trust me, that's a very valid point, but we also have to understand that the agreement they have with the NFL sets those prices. So, certainly the NFL wouldn't have written into the agreement, hey, if XYZ, if a global pandemic happens, you can cut this, right? The same way I know, having just canceled Sunday tickets, I'm not paying $64.99 a month to watch Philip Rivers this year. They come out and, DirecTV will tell you the same thing. Listen, these agreements we enter into, we pay X amount. We can obviously sympathize with our customer, but we can't go and fluctuate prices back and forth. To be fair, the price fluctuation is what got us here in the first place when NFL 2K5 went, out and lowered the price. So whether or not they had that conversation with the NFL, I don't know. I would hesitate to think so, because at the same time, to go back to, racing, before, our team shut down, I remember, we were trying to sell sponsorships and we had things lined up. And, the owner just said, no, we're not going to take less than what it's worth, period. And if that means we have to go out of business to not devalue our product, then that's what we're going to do. And I don't think anyone in that building at EA wants to devalue their product. I think they believe it's worth that with the NFL license. But I think we've learned this year that, they're more willing to give copies away than anything else. And I have a feeling ultimately that those hand-given copies, are going to be used in a couple weeks. You heard it here first, to promote how much the game has been played. And that's probably going to really sour all of us. If I start to see metrics of game time and console time spent, I'm going to probably be more apt to create content based on that, because, you're excluding the fact that you gave this game away for free to a lot of people.
Yeah, they give the game away free. And to me, when you give a game away, give a game away in the way that they did, I think that's more a response to the backlash they're getting, to try and kind of drown it out somewhat. And, you talk about not devaluing their product. Well, they're giving these things away like lollipops. Like, to me, that in a way that does kind of devalue the product itself, just because, if you really believe in that product, the people will go get it. If it's a product that is truly worthy of a $60 buy, people will go and buy it. And I'm looking here at the chat, and I look at a game, and I play this game a lot, actually. Look at a game like Pro Evolution Soccer. Pro Evolution Soccer versus FIFA. PES football is essentially in the same position that 2K was in with NFL 2K. PES football is a superior game than FIFA in every way. Now, there's obviously going to be different games play a little bit differently based on the mode you're in. Like, for instance, MUT plays different than, an actual regular franchise or sim style game when you're playing Madden. And whenever you get into those online modes where it's monetized, things play a little bit differently, to be a little bit more balanced, a little bit more balanced in the playing field, so that it's not so much about skill, it's just about how the game kind of pushes the momentum. And PES has an issue with that. But when you look at the core gameplay from PES versus FIFA, there really isn't a comparison. It's really like night and day. This game is a very sim style game. The pace is much slower than what you'll find when you're playing FIFA. And they have a devout fan base. And each year it seems like PES is getting a little bit a little bit closer to FIFA in its sales, a little bit closer in its exposure, a little bit closer in its popularity. But people who actually take the dive and play the game come back with, in agreement that it's really just it's that far ahead of FIFA, even though people don't necessarily realize it yet. And with EA, you look at their situation, and everything that they seemed to be pushing forward when they had competition kind of moved into a different focus once it was just them holding the reins to the simulation license. You look at a lot of what they've done, much of it is based in monetization. The Yard is based in monetization. Mutt is based in monetization. And the games, in that regard, the game really steps outside of anything sim in where the core of its gameplay lies at. And really, again, at the end of the day, if there was another company out there that had the ability to actually present a far better sim experience, I'm not so sure that EA would have came out with something like the Yard. The Yard was actually the answer to 2K reestablishing a license with the NFL and the NFLPA to actually have a game on market with NFL teams and NFL players. And I mean, this is what 6 months before Madden comes out, this is announced, or 3 months before Madden comes out, this is announced. Then all of a sudden, boom, here comes the Yard. The Yard is the instant reaction to that. But why would the Yard be inside of a simulation football game? Why don't you have the Yard as a separate standalone game that you can put a full cycle of development into? Because as it is now, it's a half-baked mode in my eyes. It doesn't even have commentary. So there's a lot that's missing from it in regards to giving it a true arcade over-the-top experience. It doesn't have that at all. But let's we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second here. We got a couple more super chats. Let me grab these real quick. We got a $4.99 super chat coming from TLJ Screwjob. Appreciate that $4.99 TLJ. He says, my brother worked as a QA tester on Madden 20. He and his team would send in bugs, but be told they were fixed and the bugs would still be there. Is anybody really surprised with that? Are we really surprised that EA says they fixed the bug, but then when you go into the game, you either find it's still there or you find one that kind of replaces that bug that's 5 times worse? And one more here. We got one Kobe videos, $5. Appreciate that one. Kobe, he said, did you guys see the ads EA put into UFC 4? And a lot of the issues with Madden have been present the whole console generation. Yes, that's absolutely true. And UFC 4, yes, that's a good point to make. I actually saw a video from Young Yeah on YouTube today, actually diving into that, and even this guy, Young Yeah, who really once in a blue moon will take on a sports game as his topic matter. This week he's dropped a number of videos directed squarely at EA and what they're doing with their games and how they're really kind of turning their games into marketing vehicles for products that have nothing to do with the game that you're actually playing. And how is that fair to the fans or fair to the people who spend their money on a game to be, interrupted routinely with advertisements that don't really fit into the environment that they're being played in? That's something that Madden has had a long while too. And, it really just kind of shows the callous considerations that EA has for the people who actually buy their products. I don't really want to see a full screen advertisement for the boys in my game if I'm playing UFC 4. I wouldn't want to see that on the Jumbotron if I'm playing Madden. And those are things that, again, they've taken their focus off of gameplay mechanics and improving their gameplay and placed them more into, hey, what can we get money from? Where can we get more exposure to a casual audience that isn't really, heavily invested in our game, but they love watching, Amazon Prime or Netflix and this stuff that doesn't have anything to do with our game. So we're going to put it in there to try and appeal to everybody who comes across it. What do you guys think about that? I mean, I saw the video today. It was about an 18-minute video with Young Yeah, but just the general, the general concept of putting these kind of full advertisements for products that are not relative to the actual game that's being played. What do you guys think about those kind of tactics from EA?
I'll have to jump off after this. I have to work tomorrow, so I'll listen to your answer off the air, soft drink, if that makes sense. But
okay,
I feel like people put on a seatbelt or earmuffs, kids. I feel like for once EA probably got the rough end of this. To a casual person that doesn't completely follow the UFC, they probably looked at this and were really taken back. But the fact of the matter is the UFC has integrated those ads into their broadcast for the last 5 or 6 years. They're really one of, if not the only sport I know that actually does it. So I think it's one of those things where, we have to understand that behind closed doors, there are agreements between the official XYZ of athlete or brand Y. So, when you talk about the Pizza Hut Stadium, for example, in Madden, those are things where EA goes to the NFL and promises exposure. We will, in addition to all the things we're doing with your license, make sure that your official Snicker bar is taken care of. Your official pizza chain is taken care of. And those get integrated into the game. And thus, when you have the NFL going out and selling their sponsorship, they can go and say, not only will you be branded on our stadiums and by our teams, you'll also be branded into our video game, which falls right back into the numbers we just talked about. Sales are up 20%. Engagement is up, whatever they say it's going to be. So I think you have a situation there where the UFC was able to go out to Amazon and say, in addition to, getting exposure through our brand, you'll also be carried over into our video game. And in which case, probably could have been done a little bit more subtle, like just the corner bumpers. Instead, they elected to go a full screen ad, which, I get how it looks, but I would challenge anyone, go watch a couple pay-per-views, go watch a couple fight nights. I will say that I was a bit more taken back by it when I'm paying for ESPN Plus as a premium service, and I see those ads come up on my channel. But those are things we all have to understand and adapt to. It's part of business. Yeah, it's I think if anything, something easy. I know we don't like to think about that, but it's something easy for them to do. It's a simple asset, but as you said, under a microscope, in the scope of all the things that the game is missing, EA is in a position right now, from what I've seen, from UFC to Madden to the Sims community. And my God, the Sims community, I don't even know how. I will say, anybody thinks that we have it bad. What I've learned from the Sims community the past couple of months, I mean, they're talking like buying a console cost for their game with all the add-ons they get. So, it's really odd to me that you have the community where we are. It's basically boiled down to a game that tries to appease way too many things and do way too many things. But the one thing it's not taking care of is its customer. I don't understand why they can't go to a tiered pricing system. Uche, you probably don't know this too well because you were playing in the game, not buying the tickets. But, when you go to a game, you pay for what you want. If you want to sit down in the 100s, the 200s, the 500s, the 700s. I don't know why EA can't price their product out the same way. You want the base game, head-to-head, offline franchise, it's this much. If you want to add in the yard, it's this much more. If you want to add an ultimate team, it's this much more. Start with your base game and build your way up, and let's see how much your product really sells. Let's see what your game is really worth. Let's see how many people really buy the Ultimate Edition. But I think if they did that, they'd learn that their game isn't anywhere near it should be. And there's so many factors for that, which I'm sure you guys can spend much of the next 30 minutes talking about. So I will be back with you guys next week. If you haven't watched, Soft Drink did an incredible job of a documentary. Almost, it's not real. I mean, I call it a documentary because of how well it was produced, but almost 60 minutes, brought everybody in the community together. Even had, EA people on there as well. I'd recommend, I don't know how you could watch this and not have watched that, but go watch that. Uche did an incredible breakdown on my channel the other day. So, I know a lot of people talk about negativity and pulling people apart in the community, but that's not actually what's going on. It's fun to say, and it's nice to create drama, but the reality is, from a community standpoint, I think we're stronger than ever. We're going to be stronger than ever, and we're going to get these games where they need to be, whether they like it or not. But right now, we're just, dragging Madden, kicking and screaming into a place that'll be better. I will let you two have the rest of the evening to yourself, gentlemen.
Appreciate you coming on, brother. Yeah, what were you going to say, Soft Drink? I know you had some thoughts on that as well.
Well, he kind of hit the nail on the head there. But I was just going to add that I think they do it mainly because they can get away with it. Like 2K, I don't know if you knew this, but 2K, they started putting, I think last year, or 2K19 actually is I think where it started. When you load up the game and it's loading, they'd put like 2K TV is usually what's playing. They started putting ads there. So you'd see like a Toyota ad like while the game's loading, and you couldn't skip it. You had to watch the whole ad unless you went deep into settings and turned something off. So I think EA sees 2K doing that and says, okay, we can do that too now. They put it in the UFC thing and the UFC game, and then in Madden and Draft Champions, and I probably all over Ultimate Team, but I don't really get into Ultimate Team. I noticed like halfway through the game cycle in Madden 20, there's all of a sudden there's Pizza Hut ads in the stadium, where before it just said like Madden 20. So I think it's just who's supposed to hold these companies accountable and tell them you can't do that, because the licenses they're using love that, and people just keep buying the game. Like, what's going to make them stop doing that? So they just do it because they can get away with it.
And I think that's a fair point. I think that also, I think it can be a little bit of a gray area when you talk about ads like in the stadium while you're playing the game. I think that actually, if I'm being fair, I think that actually does somewhat simulate what you see on Sundays. Like, I remember being on the field during games, and on a commercial break, you look up, you look around. There's certain little small kind of commercial break advertisements that the team would play, whether it was with local sponsors or whether it was a larger NFL sponsor. And then also you would have these short moments where they would bring on, like, maybe it was military family that was in the stadium that they wanted to acknowledge, that they would bring into the onto one of the end zones, and that family would wave and they'd introduce the service member and his family. And it's something that happens in like 15 to 20 seconds once they get them out there, and then they go back off the field. And I can see where those kind of things do play into the overall football experience. But like you said, having a full-blown commercial playing while you're waiting on the game to load, to me, that's ridiculous. I never saw that in NBA 2K's games, but I did hear about it. And I think there was some kind of backlash from the fan base that kind of prompted 2K to, I guess, remove that from the game. I'm not sure. I know you said there was a setting or something like that, but definitely I think that there's a fine line, and when you go too far with it, when it becomes too intrusive, that's where people who spent their hard-earned $60 can get kind of left out to dry, because they're not really interested in seeing a commercial. I know I don't really want to see a TV commercial. That's like paying for YouTube Premium and then seeing an ad. If I see an ad anywhere in YouTube Premium, I am pissed off, even if it's 3 seconds. I'm like, no. I didn't pay $14 a month to see an ad. There should be no ads anywhere when I watch a video on this platform. But let's jump to. I've got a couple more super chats here. Let me jump to them real fast. All right, the Greg is a regular on my streams, and he has some really interesting super chats that he drops in. Always appreciated though. The Greg for $5 says, to be fair, Madden 21 supposed to be so realistic. No matter what you do in franchise mode, Jags never win a Super Bowl, just like in real life. And hey, at this moment, seeing the state of the Jaguars right now in 2020, I'm not going to argue against that. So appreciate that, the Greg. And also we have here formerly Rod Line with a $4.99 super chat. Appreciate that, formerly Rod. He says, have you ever been to a bar and play Golden Tee Golf. We had the same types of problems because of rush development. Yearly games are hard to innovate. And I think I think that's true. I think that is actually a true statement. A yearly game that's released each and every year, it is a little bit harder to push the envelope in development. But it's possible. And again, I say you look at a game back in 2004 with NFL 2K5, a game that had half the resources, a development team that had half the resources on multiple 2K5 that was on all the systems, right?
It was on Xbox and PlayStation 2.
Xbox and PS2. So 2K5 is a perfect example of a game that innovated, regardless of the amount of time that they had. They used each and every moment of their development cycle and maximized the potential of it. They brought us first-person football. This was something that had never been seen. And it was jarring, of course. It was hard to really get a grasp on that mode. But it was a mode that showed you that this company wasn't afraid to innovate. It wasn't afraid to take you further into the game, to be more immersed, to give you more to want to experiment with. So you got a mode that pushed the value of that game forward. The crib was another thing that every sports game since has brought in some kind of iteration of the crib into their games, where you can have your trophy system basically represented in a nice little bachelor pad with jukeboxes and memorabilia everywhere in the building. And that was innovative. That pushed the game forward. That pushed how you thought a game could immerse you forward. And then you had, the VIP system. This was an unbelievable level of stat tracking and gameplay tracking that really still is the bar when it comes to football games, and being able to follow how a person plays the game and allowing them to find new ways to advance their own gameplay styles and to bring and to elevate their own gameplay skill sets with the VIP system that kept record of all the progress you made as a player, and even allowed you to play against other people's VIPs before you played them online, so that you could practice against them. Like, these are things that are unheard of now, 15 years, 16 years later. How is that? How are these how are these features things that EA never even considered to bring into their game? Never even, if they would have tried to copy it, they would have been better off, because it would have said the greatest form of flattery is when you take someone else's idea and try to make it your own.
Right.
And they never even, if you think about Madden, the biggest innovation that they've had, I'm talking about the proverbial, like, this is what you can look at Madden and say, Madden made this and created this. The only thing I can think of is the hit stick.
Yeah.
They've done other things, but they've dropped them just as quick as they brought them to their game. But the one thing that's been consistent for Madden has been the hit stick. And that was an innovation that at the time, honestly, 2K did not have an answer for. But 2K didn't necessarily need an answer. Their gameplay was that much better. So you didn't necessarily need a hit stick, because you had such control on the field. You had such priority over what you wanted to do when you're playing the game that you didn't even notice that you couldn't hit stick. You could hit hard. You could go for hit stick style tackles.
You could charge up and then hit square.
You could charge up and then die for a powered up tackle, but you didn't necessarily have like a flick this stick and you try and take their head off type thing. And that was an innovation that Madden made 15 years ago. And since then, I can't think of one singular thing that has been a consistent in that franchise since, other than the glitches and the lack of polished gameplay. But what do you think about this, man? I mean, it's a yearly game. Do you think Madden should either lower the price of Madden and just kind of provide it as a kind of work it as a constant updating title, or I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, I personally think that there is a valid argument in changing Madden's entire I guess the entire structure of how they release it yearly and say, hey, we're going to release a $29.99 Madden online package, and each year it will be $29.99, but instead of going to the drawing board and rebuilding, this or rebuilding that, we'll just be doing that constantly, and we'll present it in updates that you can download. It will update your game, and until we change the engine or decide that they want to bring out a completely new version that does have enough in it that's changed that you actually have to consider it a new title. What do you think about just them going on a path like that to kind of, I mean, give themselves a little bit more space to, not try and rip people off for a $60 game each and every year and call it new when we know it's not?
I feel like all sports games in general are just not worth $60 year to year. It doesn't matter if it's NBA 2K, if it's a golf game, if it's Madden, if it's NHL. I think in an ideal world, sports games like take a few years of development, like any other AAA game. It takes at least 3 years, maybe, and they'd release the game for $60 every 3 years, and then in between then they'd have patches, or DLC for the next year's roster update, like I don't know, $10-20.
Mm-hmm.
If they add like a new story to My Career or something like that, in like 2K, for example, maybe they'd give you story DLC for $10. Things like that, and just like improvements as the game goes on, because that's how all other AAA games are. Like you play a game like The Last of Us or any AAA game, and it's just it blows me away when I play these like non-sports games, because you can tell like this is like insane stuff that they've developed over a few years, and with sports games it's just not possible. That's why you see like in 2K the park is pretty much the same every year. Madden obviously I think is the worst at changing year to year. They don't change. Oh man, I
Nothing,
feel like,
dude. They changed nothing. I didn't, and not to cut you off, but I did a number of Zoom calls with these guys, and this was before the game came out. This was before the beta came out. And, when the beta, they gave me a code for the beta. I started playing the beta. I mean, the beta was, it really should have been an alpha because it was messed up from the very jump to start with that. But, when the game came out, the final product, I remember, I texted Clint Oldenburg when the game came out. I said, hey, congratulations on launching it. And this is literally as the game is like, as I'm getting ready to start playing it, I just sent him out a congratulations and knowing from, or at least from what he had told me about how much work they put into getting this game launched and getting it ready for launch, I'm expecting, okay, well, if there is if there's a distinct difference in the actual core gameplay, then, okay, cool. Because that's what it sounds like. That's kind of what there should have been based on how, me and his conversations were going. But when I started playing the game, I was just like, whoa, this game, is this what he was talking about? They were having so much work being done to bring out, because this is the same game that I played, that I got as Madden 20, the same game that I have loaded on my computer and was playing last year. I don't really see anything other than just the colors of the menus. The interface of the menus is just a different theme. I don't see anything significant. What am I missing? I literally thought, well, maybe there's a day one patch that's coming that's really gonna, change things up, or it's gonna clean a bunch of stuff up, because the menus were super, super slow. I mean, it was like almost, it was irritatingly slow. It was, you know, I hit a button, 2 seconds goes by, I hear the sound of when I hit the button, and then the next screen starts to load. And I just was like, that doesn't seem right. But they let an update out, and I mean, I really, you know, I actually haven't texted Clint since the update, because I'm like, the only text I can think of sending him is, what in the hell kind of game is this? You said you guys were working your asses off on this. Well, what did you do? I don't see anything. But real quick here, let me knock out a few of these super chats real fast. We got John 2099 for $5. John 2099. Appreciate that $5 super chat. He says, do you think if another game company made a generic game without the NFL license after a few years, they could pressure the NFL to drop EA? Well, we had a game called All Pro Football 2K8. I think that was about as good as you could expect a company to do with a game that doesn't have the NFL license. I mean, when you talk about development and putting a lot of hard work into a development cycle to create a game, Visual Concepts did that to bring out All Pro Football 2K8. They created all of the stadiums are uniquely created. They created logos. They created completely new character models. They had a number of NFL legends that they actually, you know, created models representing them. They did motion capture to mimic their signature styles, and all the things that you would expect from 2K. They did it all for this game, regardless of the fact that they didn't have an NFL license. And honestly, it is the most sim football video game you can find on the market, period. Mm-hmm. It is it's a sim as sim comes. And you can test it to this day. You can test out the core foundation of the gameplay against anything you want. And 95% of the time, the game uses proper logic. The game reacts in a way that you would, if you know football, it reacts in a way that you would expect. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's about as close as you're going to get, all things considered. When you look at a game like Madden and you compare it to it, there's no comparison. Again, it only boiled down to resources. This game had to be a hit, or it would be hard to make a sequel. And it didn't sell a lot. But to the people who bought it and the people who followed this game after NFL 2K, because there was a lot of demand after that exclusive license deal from 2K fans for Visual Concepts to make a game for the fans to bring something out that we could get behind. And I'm sure a lot of 2K fans did get behind it. The ones who had been there from day one. I know I did. I got it the day it came out, and I played it and I made different teams and I did everything you could. And even up to last year, I actually still had it on my PC on an emulator and was actively playing it. And just unbelievable when you talk about a game being made. And it took them about 2 or 3 years to actually make the game and bring it out. But yeah, I think that I agree with what you said. Like, having a multi-year cycle to develop a game is probably a much more sound business plan in the larger scale of things when all things are equal. But with EA, they know they didn't have to do that. And that's what we're getting. Mm-hmm. Now on another super chat here, we got this one is just a Canadian $6.99 from Hayward Beasley, and it just is a blank super chat, so appreciate that too as well. But thank you guys very much for being on here. Really appreciate everybody who's here. Really appreciate you guys in the chat. It's been a great conversation. We're going to keep going here. Got about 15 more minutes left with Soft Drink TV. But tell me, man, what and really we're going to talk about this here in a second, but what do you think should be the next move for EA when it comes to the next gen systems that are right around the corner? I mean, I'm assuming that we're going to get the exact same game with a couple of minor tweaks that they're going to present as revolutionary next gen, next gen power being exploited. But what do you think is the next step? Where do you think it's going to go from here? I mean, when you think about the licensing agreement, it's a slim to none chance that license is going to get dropped. Not because the NFL wouldn't necessarily want to, but because that would be a litigation fiasco that I'm sure the NFL doesn't really want to get involved with EA Sports if they decided to move that way.
Yeah. So earlier today, I was looking at the stipulations of 2K's new contract with the NFL and the NFLPA, and I noticed that. Of course, with the NFL, the first agreement they got, it's non-sim. They can't use it to make a sim game. The NFLPA license does not have that stipulation. And I started thinking, the NBA Playgrounds game, which is what I think most people would assume 2K is going to make an NFL version of that with the NFL license if it's not sim. That game didn't sell very well. It sold like 500,000 copies, and the second one sold even worse. So in my mind, I'm thinking this license probably cost a lot of money for 2K. So why would they buy this license if they are only going to release like a Playgrounds type game? It just doesn't make sense to me. And when I looked at that NFLPA agreement and there's no stipulation about non-sim or sim or anything like that, it made me think of Madden 64 on the Nintendo 64. That game was not an NFL game. It just had all the rosters, it had all the teams, it had all the players, but the teams were just called the city. Like it was called like Foxborough for the Patriots. Yeah. It was called New York for New York.
That's right. That's right. And it was a good game.
Yeah. So I feel like 2K would be, if that's something they can legally do, they would be foolish not to take the opportunity, because how else are they going to break even from this NFL license if they're just going to drop a Playgrounds game? People are going to be disappointed. Oh, it's just another microtransaction arcade game. There's very clearly a demand for a Madden competitor. Like we've seen it with these hashtags and with the review bombing on Metacritic. People are pissed off. They want something else. Like if 2K8 released today, I think it would sell way better than in 2007.
I agree. I think that it was so overshadowed when it came out because Madden was a juggernaut at that point. Madden was the be all and end all of sports football or video game football. So when they brought the game out, they didn't market it totally. It didn't have a huge marketing budget. They had some commercials, but not a ton of platforms to push it on like you have now. So I think that maybe you might be onto something with that, because that 2K engine has been maintained by a skeleton development crew since the license was taken over by EA. And that's coming from people at 2K Sports. They have had a small group of developers who have updated their football engine constantly, and that was because they wanted to sell it. And it would sell for an unbelievable amount of money because it is a engine that is specifically tailored to the sport of football. Unlike Madden uses an engine that is actually specifically tailored to first-person shooters.
Right.
And was never intended to be used for a sports video game. And that engine is mandated to be used by EA on every single game they develop. So there is no flexibility, and you can't turn, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig.
Right.
You can't change what that engine was made for. And that's where a lot of these pitfalls in the development have reared their ugly head, because there's just not, they're having to bend a system to fit into, or they're having to bend an engine to fit to a system that it doesn't really, it's not intended to fit to. But I think that that's actually a really, really, that's good insight to see that there might be something different in the cards that 2K is getting ready to play by having both their football engine constantly updated and having an agreement with the NFLPA that does not specify that they are, that they're not allowed to make an or at least a simulation style game with the NFL players' likeness and names. Mm-hmm. So maybe we may be looking at a re-emergence of all pro football with all current NFL players playing with custom teams that you build yourself. That would be awesome.
That on awesome. Next gen consoles would be dream
phenomenal. And you just leave it to the community. They'll make it the NFL. They'll make it into the NFL. We got a super chat here. RC from NYC. He is a member of the offensive line. That is my membership program with my channel. If you feel like joining, hit that join button down below and become a member of the O-line. But RC from NYC, $10. Appreciate that super chat. RC, good guy, always been here on the stream since day one. Says, "What's up, everyone? I always wonder what type of football personnel EA uses for their quality assurance. Active/retired players, coaches, super fans. Having the right hands-on people there will go a long way." And that's absolutely correct. And that's something that I brought up to Clint Oldenburg when we had Zoom calls, was that you've got a lot of guys who were former players who played many years in the NFL. I had almost 100 starts in the NFL out of 112 games. I think I was at 94 or 92 starts. And, I know a thing or two about football logic, about football concepts, and not even just on offense, but on defense. We're taught the entire gamut in the NFL. You have to understand what you're playing against and why you're doing the things you're doing on certain plays. What are you trying to attack in the defense by running certain plays, certain styles, certain concepts of offense? And, it would do a game like Madden very well to have people who are in lockstep with the actual developers who are programming the game to be able to direct them into what makes sense in football. Like when I broke down the video the other day, there is one of the biggest things that stuck out to me in breaking down a counterplay of all things was, why is the left tackle, who is on the opposite side of the field, or rather on the opposite side of the hash marks from the actual called linebacker, why is the left tackle running all the way to the right side of the field to pick up the call linebacker? It's not his guy. In a counterplay, that would never be his guy. Why is he the one who is consistently running after the called linebacker? Doesn't make sense. That's not football. So how could developers and people who are programming the game think that that is the right person to be going after on this kind of a play? You can, on counter plays, on power plays, on a lot of power G plays. Yes, you have guys who are pulling, but generally the call backer is the same guy all the time, and the same people are responsible for those guys all the time. The concept of the power play is the kick out, the wash down, and the A gap to B gap lead with the running back. So why would a guy on the left side not block the linebacker directly over him, but instead ignore that backer and go to the backer on the far back side every single time? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. A lot of logic that just does not follow what true football teaches in Madden. And and to me, that falls on somebody like Clint Oldenburg. You should know that. You should be telling them, no. On the power play, the call backer is the mic. The center and the guard who are opposite of the puller, they're responsible for that backside. And the puller is going to be kicking out the first backer in the A gap off of the double team play side. That's just how it is. That's in every NFL team in the league. That's how they run power. That's just power. But I digress. I get pissed off when people mess up plays like that because, in Jacksonville with Maurice Jones-Drew in the backfield, that we called the power play God's play. We ran the power play against a team like the Broncos. We had the lead against the Broncos with 7 minutes to go in the game. We had a 3-point lead. We got the ball at our 20-yard line in Denver, mile high, can barely breathe, suffering, and we ran the power play 14 times in a row to end the game at their 2-yard line. Like, we said we would run that play in meetings the night before. We said if it came down to it, we were going to, and the game is on the line, we're going to run the one play that they know we're going to run. And it doesn't matter if they know it. They have to stop it. We execute it, pick up your blocks the way we've always done it in practice, then we'll win the game. And yeah, I had a migraine because I was the puller on that play. And I pulled into the A gap of guys who were just running all out downhill to try and blow it up. But it didn't matter because we knew what we were doing. We were on the right people, and we executed it 14 times in a row. And then we took a knee at the 1-yard line to end the game. We didn't even go in to score. We just took a knee, which was the most satisfying win, one of the most satisfying wins of my career, because at the end of the day, when you execute, it doesn't matter if they know what you're doing. It doesn't matter. So if they can't execute the assignments of one of the most rudimentary, fundamentally basic power man-on-man plays in football, then how can we expect them to take care of anything that's any more complicated? They're not paying attention to the actual details needed to produce a good game. And part of that is knowing football. So, that's my rant because, I'm passionate about it because I know football. Mm-hmm. And when I see it not being run the right way, it irritates me because these people will come out and say they create the best football game on the market. Well, if you ask somebody who plays football, they're going to tell you that's not football. Running crossing routes every play down the field and beating every coverage just because the game's logic doesn't allow the defender to know that, hey, yes, you are guarding this zone. But when somebody comes into that zone and it's just one person running by in your zone, you carry that person until the next zone picks it up. You carry them. And it doesn't do it. So a guy can run a 8-yard crossing route, 2 routes crossing each other at the middle of the field. One of them is going to be open every single time because you can only carry one of them by yourself. You can't carry both of them. So yeah, that's me ranting. I'm sorry. But let me knock out a few of these super chats real quick, and we'll get into the last little details on what Madden is claiming they're going to do with their franchise updates in November, which is 2 months from now, when
next gen comes out.
So they've already started the kind of smoke and mirrors campaign that we all know and love with Madden. But here is we got another super chat here from PTA Sports $4.99. Really appreciate that. He says, "Keep fighting the good fight, gents. I'm here in the trenches with you." Oh, yes, we are in the trenches, people. We are in the trenches. Also, Hayward Beasley. I think he might have gotten his super chat fixed up here this time. But Hayward Beasley with a Canadian $6.99. Appreciate that, Hayward. He says, do you think that an other company can take a PES approach for a football game with an NFLPA license and just do generic teams, but have players? And I think that really goes back to what you were talking about here a minute ago, Soft Drink, when you mentioned that entire deal with them having maybe having the ability to go sim without using the actual team names, but having the players. I think that would be awesome. And I really hope they do that. The Greg for $5. The Greg says, if you go out and buy Madden 21, I got some Jaguars 2020 NFL Champions gear to sell you. Well, hey man, if you've been paying attention to the Jags lately, There's nothing that says champions on any of their gear, and probably won't be for a while. But let's see what else we got here. I think that is, I think that's it on the super chats. Now let's, with the last few minutes we got here, we're a minute or so over, but I think it's important that we kind of go into this real quick to finish things up. Let's talk about, and I'm going to share a screen here. Let's talk about this real quick. Let's see, Chrome tab. There we go. So Madden 21, EA releases details on franchise mode updates. And we got 4 specifics here that EA is promoting will be part of the next update package that's coming in November for franchise. And we have the X Factor Superstar ability customization. We have the player card career stats UI, which is just an interface, but okay. The dev trait regression tuning and a playoff bracket. Now give me a little bit of your, what do you think about how this is being presented by EA, and whether or not these are significant enough to really warrant any kind of real press in saying that, oh, they're answering the call of the fans here?
So the one that really stuck out to me, because it's something I've really been complaining about for a long time, is the player card career stats UI. Because when Madden moved to the next generation of consoles, the PS4 and Xbox One, they basically, when you were in a franchise mode, the team column just disappeared when you view a player's stats. There was no more team column. So like if you're like 10 years into a franchise, you sign some generic dude, you don't know what team he came from, and that you like to create narratives in your head when you play franchise. At least I do. Like, man, I got to use this guy this game because he's going up against his former team. He wants to show out. Like, I just thought that was such a small, tiny thing, and it took them this long to put it back in the game. And I'm glad that they put it back in the game, but like, this is something that should have never not been in the game. It's something like in the 1940s, you'd have baseball cards and they have a team column. It's like, when you look at stats, the team column is like one of the most important things with stats. So that's the biggest change in this whole list, because X Factor customization, that when they put X Factors in the game, you should have been able to customize them. Like that's just crazy, especially for the people making custom rosters and stuff. Like, how could that not be in the game from the start? Dev trait regression tuning. We'll just have to take their word for that, because they say they do that anyways. I'm pretty sure, like, oh, we tweaked regression this year. And then playoff bracket is cool, I guess. All these things, I don't see how a AAA company with EA's kind of money, why does this have to come in November? Why wasn't this in the launch game? And why is this something that you should be proud to release? Like, look at what we're adding to the game later on. I just think it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I know. I think that these are all superficial additions, not really additions that change the game or really address any issues in the game that really are at the core of the problems with playing Madden. A lot of this, like you said, these are things that should have already been ready to go. I mean, you had 12 months. You couldn't get these things in the game. I mean, you didn't change anything, so it should have been easier to just slide these in there. Or, I mean, hey, maybe it wasn't. But at the very least, you should have had the UI things in order. X Factor, Superstar ability. I mean, yeah, they added some to this year's game, but were those things that took 3 weeks to a month to add one at a time? I mean, what was it that takes so much time in being able to really address changing or adding to some of the gameplay mechanics with X Factor and with trait regression tuning? Why aren't these things part of just the routine process of polishing this game up? The playoff bracket. Okay, the NFL is doing that. So how is that even something worth mentioning?
Expected.
Yeah, that's just something that we expect. It's like saying, yeah, we put the Super Bowl back in this game. Oh yeah, wait, they did take the Pro Bowl out of Madden for a while there. So I guess when you talk about things that should be there that are expected to be there, maybe you just shouldn't expect these things with EA because they just don't seem to put that much weight into it. I mean, oh, we ran out of memory, so we can't put in the Pro Bowl. What? You ran out of memory, so you can't put in the Pro Bowl? What do you mean? It wasn't in there to begin with? I mean, what are they doing? What are they really doing outside of cosmetic upgrades with the menus, which they half-heartedly did at that, and just the marketing? Because it seems that they lean more on the marketing at this point than the actual game itself. And to be fair here, I will give them the singular credit in that the defensive line, the mechanics that they changed with controlling the D line and actually rushing on the D line, those are very solid. That's a very solid gameplay mechanic update. I think that using the right stick to pass rush on the D line is actually, that makes a ton of sense. And I guess, I can compliment EA, but at the same time, why the hell didn't y'all put that in the game like 4 years ago? That's like the shot stick in NBA 2K. Like, that's just been there. Mm-hmm. How come that's not something that you guys didn't say, okay, why don't we apply this to, all aspects of the game? You can use the right stick as just a core part of the game mechanics to play the game. I mean, they can, whether it be tackling, whether it be pass rush, whether it be, running with the ball. These are all things that in today's day and age, with this generation of hardware, with this generation of gaming, things are applied to the sticks to add to mechanics in games, in almost every way. So that makes sense. And that was something that I looked at and I said, that is actually a very good, solid. It's not perfect, but it is a very good gameplay mechanic that they added to the game that really does give that aspect of the game some life, because other than that, this game is very soulless. There's not a lot of, I don't feel immersed when I'm playing Madden at all. I feel it feels like a chore. I feel like I am engaging in a chore, and depending on who this game matches me up with, it's either going to be one that I can tolerate, or it's going to be one that I will be quickly irritated by, depending on what this other player that I'm playing against, how he understands how to play this game. There's nothing more irritating for me than to play against somebody who doesn't play football when they're playing Madden. They just play glitch ball. They play cheese ball. They run around the field. They do all these things that are just not viable actions if you're really playing football. And it works for them because the game allows it to happen. Now, I can't be, so narrow-sighted to think that, every person who plays the game can play it in a sim manner, because that's not realistic. But, you shouldn't be able to do some of the things you do in Madden and get away with it without having to pay a heavy price. There have been guys who've thrown the ball off their back foot literally across the field, sideline to sideline, 50 yards down the field, and somehow the receiver is open and gets the ball on the dime. Like, okay, that is bullshit. and you get frustrated, but at the same time, you knew what you bought. You knew what you were getting into when you got this game. So, it's hard to complain now. But with all of that being said, hey, I really appreciate you coming on so much, Soft Drink TV. This guy is the guy who has spearheaded this entire movement against Madden 21, against just the Madden monopoly that we're all witnessing here in the gaming community. And I think that Ryan was right to say that this is something that's bringing the community together, because, whether it be the guys who compete on Madden, or whether it be the casual gamer who just likes to pick up the sticks and hop in a game, I think it's gotten so bad to a point that it's noticeable by everybody across the board. And I would urge people in the community to just, continue to make EA aware, continue to make the NFL aware, continue to pump out this hashtag. I'm a former NFL player. I actually have, a relationship with these guys who make this game, and I'm pumping out the hashtag because to me, hey, at the end of the day, I want a good game. Right. And I tried to help you guys. I wanted to help you guys. I still want to help you guys. But like I told them, when that license is up, you guys better be ready, because the first company to bring out an NFL game, simulation style, is going to get a good look from the fans. They're going to get a good look because fans are ready to look elsewhere. If they had the ability to, then EA would have been in the bunker by now. But it's the only way that we're going to continue to keep this thing in the eye of the media, in the eyes of the people who make the game and the people who are working on the game now for what's coming out in the next gen, for the next year's iteration. They have to understand that they're gonna pay a price if they don't do something immediately. And for a lot of people's minds made up, the first opportunity they get at another sim game, whether it be licensed or not, they're going to give it a look. And I think 2K has an amazing opportunity here. And I hope that they're able to realize that, they do have the opportunity to get a big leg up on EA, whether it be having the players' likeness and creating a sim with just the players and kind of a relaunch of All Pro Football, or bringing out a non-sim arcade game, but maybe even toning down the arcadeness to kind of play on that borderline of sim and arcade. They have an opportunity to really answer the call that EA won't for the football fan base. And if they have players' names and players' likeness, I think that a lot of people can look past just the logos if they're able to customize the teams to their liking. So, it could be a great thing, could be something that really does kind of redirect the narrative and change the landscape of NFL football games. But that remains to be seen. But until then, I think we all should just continue to band together as football fans and as video game fans, and and keep it positive. Keep it positive, but keep the pressure on. Positive pressure. There are guys who compete on Madden each and every year. Hey, those guys are just playing the game. They're not part of the problem unless they're pushing a narrative that people should be spending more money in a game that already rips you off for the $60 that you spent. So, be cognizant of that, and let's just continue to build on this. And we'll be back at this next week. And Soft Drink, man, anytime you want to come back onto this thing, man, and jump back in one of these community hangouts, feel free. Let me know. You got my Twitter. We can trade. You can let me know if you're going to be in to jump or be ready to jump into one or not. But definitely appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you going, talking about some of these things with us, man. And next week I'll be back here, but definitely would look forward to having you on again sometime soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me on, man.
No problem, brother. No problem. And everybody in the chat, really do appreciate everybody who's been in here. See a lot of the same names that I've seen over the past week from our first one. So I really am thankful that you guys have come in. You're sharing your time with us here on this stream, and just it's a place that we all can get together and just kind of share our stories of misery about Madden. So misery loves company. So we're all here together, and until things change, we'll keep doing what we're doing. But we'll be back in here next week, 11 p.m. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to Uche, Nwaneri, the Observant Lineman. Make sure you subscribe to Soft Drink TV, Ryan Moody 21, all content creators here who are looking to continue to build on this momentum that we have with this hashtag and Mad Monopoly. So until next time, everybody, appreciate you guys so much, and we will see you all on the next Madden Community Hangout. Peace.